Hey guys, Steve Wise here, president and founder of Mental Fitness LLC. For today's training, I want to talk about stress. Society gets stress wrong. When we talk about stress in our society, we use terms like we need to manage our stress. We want to set up a stress-free workplace, or we want to eliminate stress entirely. All of these are not only impossible tasks, but make fundamental assumptions that are in and of themselves wrong. So what is the fundamental assumption that one makes when someone says we need to better manage our stress or be stress-free or eliminate or reduce stress? The fundamental assumption here is that stress is bad. And yes, stress can be harmful if you have chronic stress over a long period of time. It can have physical and psychological effects that are harmful. But stress is a natural, adaptive mechanism that we all have to better enhance our performance. We don't want to eliminate stress. We want to find the optimal level of stress. Stress is not in and of itself a bad thing, as society would have us assume. Stress is very simply energy. That's it. Stress is energy. We just practice labeling it as bad and get really good at labeling it as bad, and therefore what you resist persists, and we think that we need to remove it all, which is in and of itself an impossible and poorly intended task. We don't want to remove it all. What do we want to do instead? Well, the title of today's training is Stress, Negative Threat or Positive Challenge. For me, there is nothing better in life faced as a positive challenge than as a negative threat. We always want to face life with a positive challenge mentality. So what do I mean by that? What is a positive challenge mentality? I think of life in many ways kind of like a Tough Mudder event. So Tough Mudders, for those of you who may not be familiar, are events that are maybe 10 to 12 miles long with 25 obstacles in between them. Things like crawling through mud under barbed wire, or climbing up an inverted wall, or jumping in an ice cold ice bath, or even some of the events you voluntarily get shocked as you try to jump over hay through mud, and just crazy stuff that was initially designed, I believe, to train Navy SEALs that weekend warriors like myself take on for the fun of it. So let's think about that. If I made someone do a Tough Mudder, if I forcibly made them do a Tough Mudder, and they did it against their will, it would most certainly be considered cruel and unusual punishment, without a doubt. But people will, like myself, will pay hundreds of dollars and travel hundreds of miles to participate in these grueling events. So the question here is, well, what's the difference? What's the difference between someone who, if made to do a Tough Mudder, it would be cruel and unusual punishment, versus someone who wants to do a Tough Mudder and looks at it as a positive challenge? And that is the difference. In life, we sometimes look at things as negative threats. We think that there are things we have to do. And with that label, they in and of themselves become grueling or obligatory or resentful. Or we can look at everything in life like a Tough Mudder, like a positive challenge. We can face it with a smile on our face and a song in our heart. We can face it and think, I'm going to embrace the suck. I'm going to embrace the challenge. I'm going to take it on with a great attitude. So how do we translate the attitude of what it takes to get through a Tough Mudder successfully and make it applicable to life, right? So here are some of my promises for stress trainings, right? I am not going to tell you how to better manage stress. I am not going to promise stress-free, nor am I going to tell you how to eliminate or even reduce stress. That's not my goal. My goal is to help you rethink stress in a way that better works for you, that lets you harness that energy, that lets you tame stress and use it to your optimal advantage in performance, in sustainability. So, 3 quick tips I want to mention. There's a lot more that I would get into in the more involved training, but 3 quick tips as takeaways for today's video. And these are just simple rethink strategies that can help us tame and harness stress in a positive way. Stress tip number 1, keep perspective. Perspective questions are things like, what's the worst case scenario? When I signed the lease agreement for rent, when I started Mental Fitness, I had a very small office in Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania that ran me about $750 a month, or about $10,000 per year. $10,000 a year off the top of one's salary is a risk. But I asked myself, in taming my own stress, what's the worst case scenario? I'm out 10 grand. That was a risk I was willing to take, so it was a risk I knew I needed to take. And I did, and I'm thankful I did. The perspective question is, will this matter a day, a week, a month, a year from now? If it's not gonna matter a day or a week from now, is it worth getting that upset over? If it is gonna matter a year from now, then yeah, it's worth perhaps stressing about and coming to a thoughtful conclusion. But somebody cuts you off in traffic, somebody rubs you the wrong way, you get in a tiff with your significant other, things like that are likely to brush over in a day. We don't want to catastrophize. We don't want to get swept up in. We rather just want to consider, will this matter a day, a week, a month, a year from now? If it's not going to matter a day or a week from now, it's probably just not that worth getting swept up in. Tip number 2, empathy. The key thinking here is like me. When we see someone who does something that bothers us, they're a little short in a professional conversation, or perhaps a little rude or a little off that day, we tend to fall into the fundamental attribution error, which is we blame them rather than considering circumstances, and then we judge them. This is not good for our stress. The better way to think about this, to better tame and harness stress, and to better, in this case, yes, to kind of reduce it so it's not unnecessary and we're not unnecessarily using energy on things that are not worth it, is to think, like me. Like me, this person sometimes has bad days. Like me, this person made a mistake. Like me, this person is human, right? And we practice empathy. And practicing empathy reduces stress because then we see commonality, then we see humanity instead of judgment and resentment. So stress tip number 2, practice empathy, think like me. Stress tip number 3 is to focus on the positive. Now I know this one kind of sounds like a cliche, and you're gonna hear this from a lot of people who are gonna talk about stress management, to see the positive in life. But here's why it really matters. The cliche story is 2 shoe salesmen travel to a developing country, and both of them come back with a report. One shoe salesman comes back and said, that was a waste of time. Nobody there was wearing shoes. It was stupid. The other salesperson comes back and says, this is a gold mine, man. Nobody's there wearing shoes yet. Let's get in. Positive challenge mentality. Right? When you focus on the positive, you see the opportunities that exist, you can capitalize. When you only see the void, you feel the negative emotion and you miss the opportunities. We need to train our lens of mental fitness to look for the positive in any challenge, right? There's a quote often attributed to John F. Kennedy, which he references the Chinese symbol for crisis as danger and opportunity. Far too many of us in a time of crisis only see the dangers, only see the risks, only see the negative threats. We don't see the positive challenges. We don't see the opportunities. That is what I argue. We need to change our lens of life to look at life with all the time. How is this an opportunity? How is this a positive challenge? How can I tackle this challenge just like I would a Tough Mudder, or just like I would any other sport or event I enjoy? Because that mentality is gonna let you see the opportunities. That mentality is gonna let you see the empathy and the human connection, and that mentality is gonna let you keep things in perspective, all of which are gonna let you harness and use that stress to your optimal advantage, as opposed to having stress run and manage you. With that, I appreciate you watching and listening. Thanks.